Part 1. Introduction and Historical Background. 1. The Indian Subcontinent, before the Mauryas. Before the rise of the Maurya Empire, the Indian subcontinent was a mosaic of small kingdoms, republics and tribal confederacies. The 6th century BCE saw the emergence of Mahajanapadas, 16 large political units such as Magadha, Kosala, Vatsa, Avanti and others. These states evolved from earlier tribal systems into more centralized monarchies or oligarchies. This period also witnessed the rise of new religious and philosophical movements such as Jainism and Buddhism, which challenged Vedic orthodoxy and gained significant followings among the populace, particularly among merchants and artisans in urban centers. Among the Mahajanapadas, Magadha emerged as the most powerful. Under the Haryanka and Shishunaga dynasties, it expanded its territory, laying the foundation for even greater ambitions. Eventually, the Nanda dynasty, with its immense wealth and military strength, brought the entire Gangetic Valley under one rule. However, its centralization and autocracy bred discontent, creating the conditions necessary for a dramatic change in leadership, setting the stage for the rise of the Maurya Empire. Simultaneously, Alexander the Great's invasion of northwestern India, around 327 to 325 BCE, created geopolitical tremors. Though Alexander did not advance deep into the subcontinent, his campaigns destabilized the region and fragmented the rule of local satraps and chieftains. This disruption opened a window of opportunity for a new power to rise. Into this dynamic landscape stepped Chandragupta Maurya, a young leader who, with the guidance of the brilliant strategist Chanakya, Kautilya, would establish the first pan-Indian empire. Sources on Mauryan history. Understanding the Maurya Empire relies on a diverse collection of sources: literary, archaeological, epigraphic, and foreign accounts. Each source type offers a unique perspective, helping historians piece together a nuanced image of the empire. Literary sources. One of the most important native texts associated with the Maurya Empire is the Arthashastra, attributed to Kautilya, Chanakya. Though compiled later, it reflects the political and administrative philosophy that likely influenced Chandragupta's rule. It deals with statecraft, military strategy, economic policy, law and diplomacy. Another critical source is the Puranas and the Mahavamsa, a Sri Lankan chronicle, which offer genealogical and chronological details about Mauryan rulers. Though they often mix myth with history, they remain valuable for understanding the dynastic sequence and religious transitions. Buddhist texts such as the Ashokavadana, Dipavamsa and Mahavamsa provide biographical details about Emperor Ashoka, focusing on his conversion to Buddhism, his moral transformation, and his efforts to spread the Dharma. Jain literature, especially works like Parishishtapavan by Hemachandra, also provides details about Chandragupta's association with Jainism and his later life as a Jain monk in Karnataka. 2. Epigraphic evidence. Perhaps the most direct and reliable sources are Ashoka's edicts, inscriptions carved on rocks and pillars across the Indian subcontinent. Written in Prakrit using the Brahmi script, and in some places Kharosti, Greek and Aramaic, these edicts provide insights into Ashoka's policies, his concept of Dharma, administration, religious tolerance, and public welfare. They are among the earliest deciphered inscriptions in Indian history. Then archaeological evidence. Excavations at sites like Pataliputra, modern Patna, the Mauryan capital, and Ujjain, Taxila, Sanchi and Lumbini have unearthed remnants of Mauryan architecture, urban planning and art. The use of polished stone columns, ring wells and advanced drainage systems shows the empire's sophistication. The foreign accounts. Greek and Roman sources provide an external perspective on the Mauryas. The most notable are Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador to Chandragupta's court, wrote Indica, describing Pataliputra, the administrative system, and Indian customs, though only fragments remain through later writers like Arrian and Strabo. Later accounts by Pliny the Elder and Plutarch also refer to the Mauryan Empire, mostly referencing Alexander's campaigns and interactions with Indian rulers. Chinese sources, especially Buddhist pilgrims like Faxian and Xuanzang, although writing centuries later, preserved traditions about Ashoka and his Buddhist missions. Rise of Magadha and the Nanda Dynasty 3. One, geographical and strategic advantages of Magadha. The ancient kingdom of Magadha, located in what is now southern Bihar, became the nucleus of Indian imperial history. It occupied a strategically advantageous position between the Ganges and Sun rivers, with fertile plains, rich iron deposits, and access to key trade routes. Its location also made it easy to control both northern and eastern India and establish communication with the Deccan. These geographical benefits laid the foundation for Magadha's transformation into a powerful kingdom and later a mighty empire. Two early dynasties, Haryanka and Shishunaga. The political ascent of Magadha began with the Haryanka dynasty, c. 544–4113 BCE, whose most famous ruler was Bindusara. He expanded Magadha through both warfare and marriage alliances and maintained friendly relations with the Buddha. His son, Ajatashatru, further strengthened the kingdom through military campaigns against neighboring Mahajanapadas like Kosala and the Vriji Confederacy. Following the Haryankas, the Shishunaga dynasty took power. Under Shishunaga and later Kalasoka, Magadha temporarily shifted its capital to Vaishali, but soon returned to Pataliputra. The Shishunagas continued the policy of expansion and centralized administration, paving the way for even greater dynastic control. The Nanda dynasty, c. 345–322 BCE, founded by Mahapadma Nanda, who was reportedly of low origin, possibly a Barbar by caste, the dynasty broke the pattern of Kshatriya domination in royal lineage. He declared himself the destroyer of all Kshatriyas and expanded Magadha's rule over much of northern India. The Nandas built a formidable army, said by Greek sources to include 200,000 infantry, 20,000 cavalry, 2,000 chariots, and 3,000 elephants, an unprecedented scale in ancient Indian history. Their immense wealth, drawn from taxation and control over natural resources, especially iron and gold, allowed them to maintain this powerful force. However, their centralized and authoritarian rule, along with the exclusion of traditional elites from power, made them deeply unpopular among both the aristocracy and common people. The last Nanda ruler, Dhanananda, was particularly disliked for his arrogance and misrule. Conditions ripe for revolution. It was in this context of military strength but political instability that Chandragupta Maurya, with the strategic guidance of Chanakya, emerged. The unpopularity of the Nandas provided the perfect opportunity for a well-organized and charismatic challenger to overthrow the dynasty. Thus the stage was set for the Mauryan Revolution, a transformative period that would unite much of the Indian subcontinent under one rule for the first time in history. Part 2, Chandragupta Maurya, c. 322–297 BCE. 4. The fall of the Nandas. The fall of the Nanda dynasty and the rise of the Maurya Empire mark one of the most dramatic shifts in ancient Indian history. At the center of this revolution was Chandragupta Maurya, a young warrior with remarkable charisma, and his mentor Chanakya, also known as Kautilya or Vishnugupta, a brilliant Brahmin strategist from Takshashila. Von Chandragupta's early life and encounter with Chanakya. According to legends preserved in texts like the Mudrarakshasa and Parishishta Parvan, Chandragupta came from a humble background, possibly of the Maurya clan in eastern India. Stories vary. Some describe him as a Kshatriya, others link him to a tribal lineage, and a few even suggest he was raised by peacock tamers, which is what Maurya may mean. He first met Chanakya in Takshashila, the great center of learning in the northwest. Chanakya, having been insulted by Dhanananda, had vowed to destroy the Nanda dynasty. Recognizing Chandragupta's potential, he took him under his wing, training him in statecraft, military strategy, and administration. Building a coalition and raising an army. Chanakya and Chandragupta began by forging alliances with local chieftains and anti-Nanda elements in the northwestern regions. They built a coalition of tribal forces, discontented nobles and loyal mercenaries. With this growing support base, Chandragupta launched a series of guerrilla-style attacks to weaken Nanda influence and test their strength. At the same time, the empire in the northwest was in flux due to the recent death of Alexander the Great, 323 BCE, whose satraps and local rulers lacked unity. Chandragupta took advantage of this instability, gaining control over parts of Punjab and Sindh, securing his rear before advancing toward the Nanda heartland. The overthrow of Dana Nanda. After several failed attempts and regroupings, Chandragupta, supported by Chanakya's unmatched strategic thinking, marched toward Pataliputra, the Nanda capital. Popular legend says that Dana Nanda, recognizing the strength of the rebellion and losing the support of his people, surrendered or fled. Other accounts suggest a bloody confrontation. By around 322 BCE, Chandragupta had successfully overthrown the Nandas, seized the throne of Magadha, and proclaimed the birth of the Maurya Empire, ushering in a new era of centralized imperial rule in the subcontinent. 4.4 Significance of the revolution. The fall of the Nandas was not merely a dynastic change, it was a political revolution. For the first time, India had a ruler who could envision and execute the unification of vast territories under a single administration. This revolution also marked the entry of non-Kshatriya elements into power, reshaping ancient Indian ideas about social order and political legitimacy. The alliance between Chandragupta's ambition and Chanakya's intellect created a powerful model of governance, laying the groundwork for an empire that would dominate South Asia for more than a century. Foundation of the Maurya Empire. With the fall of the Nanda dynasty around 322 BCE, Chandragupta Maurya firmly established himself as the ruler of Magadha, marking the beginning of the Maurya Empire, the first political entity to unify most of the Indian subcontinent under one centralized rule. Establishment of centralized authority. One of Chandragupta's first priorities after seizing power was to consolidate his control over the core territories of the former Nanda Empire. He retained Pataliputra as the imperial capital, recognizing its strategic and administrative advantages. From here, he reorganized the administrative system with the help of Chanakya, who likely played a central role in shaping the imperial structure. The empire was divided into provinces, Janapadas, each governed by a viceroy, often a member of the royal family or a trusted official, and further broken down into districts, ahara, towns, and villages. This hierarchical structure allowed for efficient tax collection, law enforcement, and public works. Expansion toward the northwest. While consolidating power in the Gangetic Plains, Chandragupta turned his attention to the northwest, which had been under the control of Greek satraps following Alexander the Great's death in 323 BCE. These territories were loosely governed and plagued by instability. Around 305 BCE, Chandragupta clashed with Seleucus Niketa, one of Alexander's generals who had established the Seleucid Empire. According to Greek records, Chandragupta fought Seleucus to a standstill and eventually negotiated a treaty. As part of the agreement, Seleucus ceded large territories, Arachosia, Gedrosia, Paropamisadai, and Aria, to the Mauryan Empire, modern-day parts of Afghanistan and Iran. In return, Chandragupta gave Seleucus 500 war elephants, a gesture that profoundly influenced Hellenistic military campaigns. A marriage alliance may have been arranged, though details are unclear. Seleucus sent Megasthenes as his ambassador to Chandragupta's court in Pataliputra, a move that enriched Greek understanding of India. This victory and diplomacy secured the northwestern frontier and extended Mauryan influence as far as the Hindu Kush, establishing the Mauryas as a dominant power across South and Central Asia. Internal reforms and governance. Chandragupta, guided by Chanakya's principles as laid out in the Arthashastra, implemented a highly organized administrative structure. This included a spy network to gather intelligence and report corruption or dissent, a strong standing army with separate divisions for infantry, cavalry, chariots, and elephants, economic reforms such as standardized taxation, land surveys, and state monopolies in key sectors like mining, salt, and liquor. Development of infrastructure, including roads, irrigation systems, and storage facilities. These reforms helped maintain stability across a vast and diverse empire. Religious and cultural climate. Though later associated with Jainism, Chandragupta's early reign likely followed a pragmatic religious policy, accommodating Brahmanical, Jain, and Buddhist traditions. He did not enforce a state religion, but supported diverse practices to maintain harmony in a religiously pluralistic society. Abdication and retirement. According to Jain tradition, in the later years of his life, Chandragupta became a follower of Jainism under the influence of the monk Bhadrabahu. He eventually abdicated the throne in favor of his son Bindusara and retired to Shravanabelagola in present-day Karnataka, where he is believed to have fasted to death in the Jain practice of Salakana.